What's going on, family? Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Let's take a look at a middleweight champion by the name of Ken Overland. Ken Overland defeated Seferino Garcia in 1940 for the middleweight championship of the world. Let's take a look at Ken Overland's career. Now, Ken Overland was born in 1910. His nationality is Irish American. He weighed 160 pounds and stood 5 foot and 8.5 inches. He was managed by Chris Dundee. Chris Dundee was the older brother of Angelo Dundee, who would later manage or train Muhammad Ali. 1932, Ken Overland would defeat Bill Brennan. 6 rounds. Sailor Johnny Skirtman, 6 rounds. We face him again in 6 rounds. He would lose to Vince Dundee in 10 rounds. Vince Dundee would be welterweight champion of the world. 1933. He would have various fights, as you can see here. He would face Billy Schell, Walter Kirkwood, (1934). He had a full schedule. January 2nd, Red Berman, good fighter, Washington, D.C. He would defeat him in 8 rounds. January 26th, Wiener Wissers, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. He would face Roxy Allen in Washington, defeat him in 8 rounds. March 8th, 1934. He would suffer his first defeat on April 30th against Paul Piron, good fighter, Philadelphia, lose to him in 10 rounds. He would suffer his second defeat in July 2nd against a fighter by the name of Jimmy Smith, Philadelphia, in 10 rounds. He would face Paul Piron again in Norfolk. He would defeat him in 10 rounds on June 4th. October 5th, he would face Al Diamond, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he would defeat him in 10 rounds. (1935). August 9th, he would face Henry Firpo, Atlantic City, New Jersey. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. August 19th, he would face Joe Smallwood in Washington, D.C., defeat him in 10 rounds. September 19th, he would face Anson Green, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, defeat him in 8 rounds. Mookie Goldman, Norfolk, Virginia. He would defeat him in 10 rounds on November 18th. 1936, he would have another good year. Rocky Allen again, Baltimore. He would knock him out in 2 rounds. He would face Mickey Bartone, Richmond, Virginia. He would knock him out in 4 rounds. Johnny Rossi, good fighter, Boston, defeat him in 10 rounds. Ralph Chong, another good fighter, Baltimore, defeat him in 10 rounds. He would face Ralph Chung again, Washington, D.C. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. August 31st, he would defeat Oscar Rankins, Pittsburgh, defeat him in 10 rounds. If you go on the Oscar Rankins Scrapbook Boxing, you can look up his profile. I just did a profile on Oscar Rankins. He would fight Ralph Chung again, Norfolk, and would defeat him in 10 rounds on October 12th. November 4th, he would face Teddy Uros, Pittsburgh. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. November 23rd, he would face Ben Brown, Richmond, defeat him in 10 rounds. December 21st, Kid Tenoro, very good fighter, Paris. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. 1937, January 27th, Fred Apostoli, New York City. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. Now, Fred Apostoli would be middleweight champion. Teddy would be middleweight champion as well. Trying to look at the other champions he might have faced. September 11th, Freddie Steele. Seattle, Washington. He would be knocked out by Freddie Steele. Freddie Steele was a phenomenal middleweight. And Freddie Steele, you can find information on him on the Freddie Steele scrapbookboxing.com. Or Scrapbook Boxing, excuse me. That's my other site. Roy Williams. White Plains. He would knock him out in 4 rounds. Roy Williams was a good fighter. October 25th, he would face Joe Butch. In Albany, would knock him out in 7 rounds. November 15th, Bobby Birch in Albany. He would defeat him in 8 rounds. In 1938, he had a good schedule, as you can see here. He had a few losses. Walter Woods in New York City, January 26, 1938. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. He would lose to Freddie Henneberry on March 30th in 1938. In Sydney, Australia, he would lose to him in 12 rounds. He would have a draw, 12 rounds. In June 23rd, 1938. He would lose to Lloyd Marshall, September 1st. San Francisco, California, he would lose to him in 10 rounds. Lloyd Marshall can be found on Scrapbook Boxing. Just type in Lloyd Marshall. Milt Shivers, Chicago, defeat him in 10 rounds. Shivers was a pretty good fighter as well. I have his profile. 1939. March 27th, he would face Teddy Uros in Houston. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. February 14th, Al Bernard, Houston. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. He would face Jimmy Webb, defeat him. Eric Silling, Chicago. He would defeat him. Irish Eddie Pierce, defeat him. These are all 10-round wins. Alan Matthews, St. Louis. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. Ben Brown, Atlanta. He would have a 10-round draw. Honey Boy Jones, St. Louis. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. He would face Ben Brown again. In Miami. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. He would face Ben Brown again in Atlanta and have a 10-round draw. That would be December 11th, 1939. Now, 1940 would be a very good year for Ken Overland. He would face Seferino Garcia on May 23rd in New York City and win the World Middleweight Championship of the world. Seferino Garcia. He would face Ken Overland, Washington, D.C. contender. And Ken Overland would take the title away from Seferino Garcia. That was Henry Armstrong's fight. They didn't want Henry Armstrong to win the title. So they gave Armstrong a shot only because they were strong-armed to do so. And they made it a draw. And then they gave the opportunity to Ken Overland, and Ken Overland took the title away from Seferino Garcia. Ken Overland was a very good fighter. So then Overland would face Ralph DeJohn in Syracuse. Defeat him in 10 rounds. That was Ralph DeJohn's hometown. He had a brother by the name of Johnny DeJohn. June 13th, he would face Ralph DeJohn. June 28th, he would face Ben Brown, Richmond, Virginia. Defeat him in 10 rounds. Billy Sues, he would lose that title to Billy Sues. July 24th, in Scranton, he would lose in 10 rounds. He would face Steve Belois, November 1st and December 13th. New York City, he would defeat him both times in 15 rounds. So Ken Overland, middleweight champion of the world, took the title from Seferino Garcia in 1940 and lose the title to Billy Sues. Garcia would take that title away from Fred Apostoli So I just wanted to recognize Ken Overland. Good fighter. Middleweight champion of the world. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to my subscribers. Peace.